Something strange happened this week. Anthropic released Fable, arguably one of the most impressive AI models we've seen so far. And almost immediately, the conversation stopped being about the technology. Instead, it became about government intervention, regulation, safety concerns, White House involvement. At first, I thought this was another routine AI controversy. A company releases a powerful model. People panic. Life goes on. But the deeper I looked, the less that explanation made sense. Because what if this wasn't really about safety at all? What if Anthropic's biggest problem is that it has simply become too powerful? And if that's true, this story isn't about AI. It's about power. To understand why this matters, I think we need to understand what Anthropic has become. Because just a few years ago, Anthropic was the underdog. The company founded by former OpenAI researchers. The cautious lab, the safety-focused alternative. Fast forward to today, and the picture looks very different. Claude consistently ranks among the strongest AI systems in the world. Developers love it, enterprises are adopting it, and many people now argue that Anthropic has quietly overtaken OpenAI. That's what caught my attention. Because success creates a strange problem. The more powerful you become, the more people start paying attention. Then the story took a turn that felt unusual, because according to multiple reports, concerns about Fable weren't emerging after the release. They were emerging before it. Government officials reportedly wanted conversations, clarifications, assurances. And suddenly, what should have been a product launch started looking more like a political event. Now maybe that's completely reasonable. Maybe the model really represented a new level of risk. I don't know. But what struck me was the timing. Because when a company is dominating an industry, every action gets interpreted differently. And that's when I started wondering, or reacting to the company behind it. The official explanation centered around safety, and on the surface, that sounds reasonable. After all, Anthropic itself has spent years arguing that advanced AI systems should be treated seriously. But this is where I started noticing contradictions, because many of the demonstrations being discussed weren't evidence of a model escaping control. They were examples of a model doing exactly what it was designed to do. Finding bugs, analyzing systems, identifying weaknesses. That's what powerful AI models have been doing for years. So the question that kept bothering me wasn't whether Fable was capable. It was why this particular capability suddenly became alarming now. And the more I looked at the timeline, the harder it became to separate safety concerns from competitive concerns. And that's when I realized I might have been looking at the wrong story. Because maybe the real question isn't whether Fable is dangerous. Maybe the real question is what happens when one company starts pulling too far ahead. For years, the AI industry followed a predictable pattern. OpenAI releases a model, Google responds, Anthropic responds, the leaderboard changes, and the cycle continues. But recently, Anthropic has been showing up at the top again and again. When a company becomes powerful enough to reshape an industry, resistance inevitably follows. Not because it's wrong, because it's influential. The deeper I dug, the more this stopped looking like an AI story and started looking like a power story. Because power has a strange effect on people. Nobody cares when you're small. Nobody worries when you're losing. Nobody asks for special rules when you're irrelevant. But once you become important enough to influence markets, investors, governments, and competitors, everything changes. Suddenly, every decision is scrutinized. Every success creates anxiety. Every advantage becomes a potential threat. And Anthropic isn't just another AI startup anymore. It's becoming one of the most important companies in the industry, which means the stakes are no longer measured in product launches. They're measured in influence, and influence is where technology starts becoming political, and that's where the entire story clicked into place for me. I don't think the biggest battle in AI is happening between models anymore. I think it's happening between power centers. For years, everyone asked, who will build the smartest AI? But increasingly, the more important question seems to be, who will control the most influential AI? Because intelligence can be copied, talent can move, technology can spread, but influence is much harder to replicate. And influence is what Anthropic appears to be accumulating. And that's why I think the title of this documentary is slightly misleading. Because after looking at the facts, I don't think the real story is Fable. I don't think it's a bug report. I don't think it's a safety dispute. I think it's a story about what happens when a company becomes powerful enough that people start worrying about its future influence rather than its current products. The controversy may have been triggered by technology, but the reaction feels increasingly driven by power. And those are not the same thing, so did Anthropic become too powerful? Maybe. But I think that's the wrong question. The better question is this. What happens when an AI company becomes powerful enough that governments, competitors, and entire industries start paying attention? Because that's when the story stops being about technology and starts becoming about power. If you enjoy deep documentaries exploring artificial intelligence, business strategy, digital psychology, and the future of technology, subscribe to Future Nerve, because the future belongs to those who understand it first. I'm Ethan Cole, and I'll see you in the next documentary.